Hey there, sheepdoggers, and welcome to another Blood Bowl 2 video. This one is going to be a how to play against elves. Specifically, this one is a wood elf video, but this one is just going to be how to play against elves. And I'm going to give you my thoughts and my kind of feelings and theories on it. So, for those of you who have had difficulty with the agile buggers, this should hopefully help. I'm playing here. I was playing a Skaven team. They're called the Build Rats. They're a Twitch team that I haven't really played recently, but they had a lot of concedes in the early days. Let's just say that. So we're playing against Netro, I believe, and as the Skaven going, I'd say going as a bashy team going up against elves, you probably want to. This is on the wrong side. Why is this on the wrong side? Switch view. There we go. You probably want to defend against elves in general. Just purely because they don't pose that much of a threat to a bashy team with a high armor value. Even if they do have a treeman, the best they can do is take down one of your guys. You know? And most wood elf teams won't field a treeman anyway. They're fairly pointless, I'd say. And again, yes, I know, oh, sheepdog doesn't like big men. Big guys. Sheepdog doesn't like big men. I like big men. I like to cuddle, okay? But no, the whole like I don't like big guys is untrue. I'll use them. I just feel they're a big risk, and a lot of the time they're more trouble than they're worth unless you get lucky. And for those of you who know about my Blood Bowl tactics are minimize risk, because regardless of how I play, I tend to get fucked. The last Chaos game should have told you that. 3 fucking deaths, right? And yeah, there were some misplays, but still. Okay, so here you see a fairly typical wood elf assault, I guess you'd say. A lot of players, all in my half, and the running game is just there to screw me over. So how do you defend against an elf team, especially a throwing elf team, but even a running elf team? You know, with the dark elf runner who has the handoff. You know, how do you deal with people like that? Well, one good way to deal with wood elves is to injure them. KOs, injuries, you know, especially early on, they don't have dodge, they don't have block with their linemen. Down goes the treeman. And again, a good reason to knock down a treeman is because his movement is tiny and he's got take root. As soon as he takes root, that's on any action. As soon as he takes root, then he's in trouble. And you can see, yeah, we've already got a couple of AKOs that's fairly decent. Even if he gets a touchdown, well, I mean, if he gets a touchdown, his guys could get back up. But it's 50-50 on them getting back up. It's not a terrible idea. So, good ways to deal with the wood elves. Make them do a lot of with elves. Make them do a lot of dodges. Have a defense where they have to. If we click on one of these guys, hopefully, it doesn't show you the movement. Okay, so they have to kind of dodge through multiple tackle zones here. So the likelihood is he's going to send it to his ward answer. There he goes, and then his ward answer is going to go for the touchdown. So good ways to deal with wood elves are things like tackle, obviously. You know, if one of these guys had tackle, either him or him, then they'd have block tackle, and it would mean a much better chance of knocking down these war dancers. War dancers are the most dangerous and most fouled players in Blood Bowl, probably, except for maybe like skinks and gutter runners as well. And you can see, making that reroll is making that reroll to knock him down was technically a good plan, although it didn't go well for me. Yeah, I mean, if they have a tree man, knock them down. The wood elves are the only ones with a big guy. The high elves and dark elves do not. Getting them to take root and then running around and doing some bashing is always a good idea. Just bashing in general can be, like, even as the Skaven, bashing is not a terrible idea. Even a stun will lower their numbers a little bit for a turn, and that can allow you to swarm them a little bit. Allowing the forced touchdown is another good example. The thing about the Wood Elves is unless you're very, very lucky, they are going to score. That's just a fact of Wood Elves and Dark Elves and High Elves. Unless you get lucky, unless you really like get the ball on the ground and then put pressure on that ball, they're going to score. So what you have to do, especially as a team like Skaven or Bretonnians or Human, what you have to do is you have to get that score back. So if they score a touchdown on you, you score a touchdown back. And you just wait for that moment when they mess up, when they've run out of rerolls, because they don't tend to have very many rerolls. And once you get that moment, then you strike, and then you kind of surround the ball and make it impossible for them to pick it up, and all those kind of things. Got a blitz. Oh no, we're not blitzing there, are we? Maybe we should. Maybe we should have. And here we see a classic example of sheepdog luck. Lots of pushing. Lots of fun pushing. There you go. 4 dice, and I finally got a knockdown. And now we do what is usually best, aside from a little bit of bashing, obviously, which is run round, pick up the ball with our gutter runner, and just go for it. A 1. And we'd already used our reroll, and yeah, these things happen. Okay, so as a less bashy team, let's say as all-rounder teams, as I tend to consider Bretonnians, Skaven, humans, maybe orcs to a certain extent, although they've got the strength players to be bashy regardless. And that's a perfect example of a good use of a reroll. What you want to be doing is you want to be defensive against them until you have a numerical superiority. Because they won't have extra players. They shouldn't have too many rerolls either. They may not even have an apothecary. So if you play defensive and just slow them down, you can get KOs, you can get injuries, maybe even deaths, and just whittle their numbers down to the point where you have the best kind of outcome in a fight. So you know, here, he's got one down, I've got one down, but I've got these players free. So, you know, that really helps. Like, I can afford to lose a couple of players KO'd or injured, because I've got backups, because I'm bloody Skaven, aren't I? You know, this is a perfect example. Usually, I wouldn't be so aggressive in my playstyle with the Skaven, but because they're Wood Elves, it's a great chance for me to knock out or injure a couple of players. It's a good chance for me to injure or knock out a couple of players, because I've got guard and block, obviously. And then take the tree out as well. And that leaves me an entire, you know, kind of area just to get going, basically. Although that was a little lucky, just FYI. So as those kind of small rounder teams, what you want to be doing really is just very defensive. If you can, and you should, have a fouling player, you know, sneaky git and dirty player. You know, you should have a specialized player for fouling. If you do have one of those, I would advise you to get down. You know, maybe have a player with wrestle. Get the war dancer down on the ground just purely to foul him. You know, because those war dancers are dangerous as hell, and that unfortunate use of the reroll there for him. Yeah, the loner failed as well. And yeah, just knock them down, keep them down. Do your best to kind of take out the war dancers through any means necessary, fouling especially. Wood Elf players will never, I'd say in general, a Wood Elf player will never hold it against you for taking out their war dancers. They start with block dodge, they have 8 movement, and they have leap. It gets a little bit ridiculous. There are other players, not so important, not really targets of fouling. I'd say not even the thrower really, unless he has some kind of specialized guy. Be very cautious, because with the leap, the war dancer can get inside your cage, and there's an injury. With leap, the war dancer can get inside your cage and take your player down. So you've got to be very cautious about that as well. And, you know, an experienced war dancer player will, of course, do everything they can to mess you up. And so you see here, the reason I used my Rat Ogre to go after the war dancer was because of Mighty Blow. Mighty Blow basically giving me the opportunity, I guess, to try and get an injury off on that war dancer. Things like piling on as well can be very useful against a war dancer. They have low armor value. If you fail to break their armor, or if you give them a stun, for example, you can at least get a knockout. So those, and that's just kind of advice in general as well, but those kind of things can be very useful. Oh, that tree got up. Other things you can do, if you get someone with plus agility, it can be a very good idea to take catch, and maybe diving catch. Wait, is it diving catch? I think diving catch is the one, like interceptions, basically. If you have a couple of players there for interceptions, even if they just have 3 agility, if you have a couple of people there for interceptions, it can be a great time for you. Crowd surfing. Crowd surfing is always a good idea, and just in general as an elf player as well, but as a Skaven, human, all of those players. Having one guy with frenzy can be great, just to knock out those players who stray too close to the to the sideline. Aside from that, and here we see the gutter runners in full effect. If we were seeing and you know, this is what I was saying is, get a touchdown back. Now, as for example, the chaos, the orcs, for the lizardmen, the less agile, the more bashy teams, lizardmen possibly can go in for a bit of run and gun, touchdown. You know, like they get one, we get one. With the of course, he stays knocked out. Not a problem for us, technically, but he is a gutter runner, I believe. With the more bashy teams, what you want to be doing is so if it's unavoidable, you let them get a touchdown. So if you're defending to begin with, like for example, if you're kicking, if you're doing the kickoff, they're receiving the ball, you're defending, you let them get that touchdown. Then you get the ball, you cage up, and you force them to bring the fight to you. You know, you force them to try and get that ball. Then once they're committed, then that's when you start bashing them. You know, when they've got the ball, if you try and get the ball off them, you can waste quite a lot of time. And they won't commit. So what you want to be doing, look at that, I mean, elf bullshit, basically. What you want to be doing is you want to be forcing them into a situation where they have the disadvantage. And when they have the ball, they always have the advantage. You know, this is a great example here of how Wood Elves can be. You know, he's literally got this war dancer out in the middle of nowhere, barely guarded at all. You know, I've got guys here ready to join in, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to knock him down. We did, we were lucky, however, still. Always cover the ball. Remember that it's very difficult to pick up the ball the more people who are around it. For example, that failure there. For example, that double failure there. But we've got 3 guys surrounding that ball. So until he gets those guys off the ball, he's going to have difficulties. So for example, now trying to pick up the ball, it'll be in 2 tackle zones, which means the pickup will be kind of the equivalent of -2. So with 4 agility, that would be equivalent of 2 agility. So I think 50-50. Would I use a reroll there? Probably. Would I be upset about double ones and a KO? Yes, I would. Okay, so, you know, what I'd be wanting to do here is to knock this guy out the way, probably bring this guy in here. Interesting. That's pretty much a misplay. Not sure why I did that. So yeah, with the bashy teams, oh, I forgot I had big hand on that dude. Am I upset about that one? Yeah, I was probably. Yeah. Loses 1 point in movement allowance. Again, like, I wouldn't advise that reroll. Just for those of you who are elf players out there and, you know, that kind of thing. Like, taking a reroll on -1 movement allowance on your lineman is... I mean, you know, 6 movement isn't great, but what if your war dancer takes a ridiculously painful hit, you know? Basically. So yeah, to kind of to play against the Wood Elves is or to play against elves in general, you want to do one of two things. You want to encourage them down the sides, or encourage them into a situation where you can surround them. This is in defense. In offense, you want to cage up, bring them to you, and then once you've got the numerical superiority, like for example I have here, you can see 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, and I've got, you know, I've got 3 guys in reserve as well. Yeah, so what you want to do is you want to kind of encourage this this kind of idea of, I have the ball, come and get me, and then when they commit, you've got the numbers to beat them down more than they can beat you down. And even if they do beat you down a little bit, that's always unfortunate. If they do beat you down a little bit, you can still afford, you know, a couple of injuries and KOs and stuff, because you've got the spare people. You know, don't always go for the injuries for the SPP. What I was going to do there was blitz this guy and knock him out the pitch. That's just unfortunate. Defensively, you want to be like, so if we were doing defensive, thank you. If we're doing defensive here, you know, if you have kind of players in this kind of area here, but you don't go onto these kind of 2 outside squares, you encourage them to go down this outside, and then you can crowd surf them. You know, if they have guys with sidestep, you know, sure, that's not great. However, you know, there are skills that can change that, like grab. And at the same time, at least you're controlling the flow of play. You know where they're going to go. If you put all of your guys on the front line, in a line, you know, like one person here, you know, as a lot of bashy teams do, all they're going to do is either leap or blitz a hole. And with your lower mobility, they're going to get that touchdown. So you've always got to consider those things. So especially with players like dwarves, you need to be having a deep defensive line. You know, like on defense, they're going to have the ball. They're going to try and run players through. Like, that's what's going to happen. So you can't expect to kind of just pile in, get a whole load of injuries, and everything will be fine. Because, you know, even with this elf team like this, you can see they still pose a threat. You know, they're still a little bit dangerous, and if you're not careful, I mean, he's to be honest, like, he's not really being defensive at all, which means I can, you know, it's the same with Skaven. You have to be very defensive against the Skaven, and I will go into how to play against Skaven, as much as I shouldn't, because I love playing Skaven. Oh, big hand. So, yeah, as another agility team, you know, basically you do things that you wouldn't want your agility, yeah, that you wouldn't be done to you, but it's basically, at that point, it's basically about outplaying them, I guess. You know, having someone with tackle, you know, if you're like a dark elf team playing against a wood elf team, having a guy with tackle, always useful. Having a guy with wrestle, again, useful. Making use of your witch elf, you know, as the high elves, making sure making sure you don't have anyone with catch in between your throws. You know, like all these kind of things, like just kind of being cautious, I guess, is going to be the best. Nearly always going to be the best play. And with the kind of with the bashy teams, like obviously getting injuries good. Like you can see here, the Wood Elves are very injury prone, same as the Skaven. The difference is that Skaven are cheap and they're easy to kind of sacrifice if you need to. And you can tend to have replacements. So I'd say one of the solid tactics for any team playing against elves is obviously bashing and injury. You lucky bastard. Yeah, one of the solid tactics for any team playing against the Wood Elves or elves in general is injury and knockouts and just taking their players out. However, you know, that's not always going to be an option. So you've got to kind of play the odds, and the best way to play the odds is to go, well, the likely outcome here is that I'm only going to knock one of them down. He's still going to try and pick up the ball, so I should, kind of have my Rat Ogre here to like minus the dodge, and there you go, another injury. At this point, we're in good times. We've got 6 people out, 5 of them injured. That's gonna have him down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players, which is really hard. This is kind of the point where it's really hard to actually play. But as you'll see, it doesn't mean they can't get touchdowns. So you always have to keep in mind that even if there's like 3 Wood Elves left on the pitch, you always have to keep in mind that if they get the ball, they can get that touchdown. Aside from that, I'd say obviously there are skills like tackle, which are specifically designed to have to go against teams like Wood Elves and dodgy agility teams. So you can kind of specify your team. You can build your team to be anti-elf or anti-agility if you like. And it's not a terrible idea, because the hardest time you'll have will always be against as a bashy team will always be against agility teams. Like other bashy teams, like if you're orcs and you're playing against a claw, mighty blow, chaos team, like it's dangerous for you. You're kind of playing as Skaven at that point. Your armor's so low, but at the same time, there are ways to deal with that, and adjusting your playstyle so you're not fighting as much. Kind of some abilities can help you out there, and getting some Dauntless on your blitzers. All those kind of things can really help. Higher team value, the Chaos are very, very dangerous, and they can wreck a team. But at the same time, there are if you spec your orcs a certain way with some guys with agility and etc., if you can, or even just catch and things like that, you can turn your team into a decent passing team. Whereas playing against the elves as a bashy team, you're never going to outpass or outrun an elf team. So you need to adjust your play and go like, right, we need to be defensive. We need to plug the gaps where we can. We need to encourage them into this little hole here, and then close the gap and surround them so they can't actually make use of these things. It's a lot harder to dodge out once you've got guys all around you. I will say this guy was a little bit unlucky in certain situations as well. For example, another thing to remember when you're playing against elves is regardless of how much of an advantage, and you know, I should know this as a Skaven player, regardless of how much of an advantage you have, it doesn't mean you're safe. You know, so I blitzed with this rat ogre here thinking, you know, like, okay, so I'll get here, and then he doesn't have a reroll, he doesn't have dodge, which means his dodge is going to be less effective. You know, I'm kind of like, I've got so many guys that this guy's pretty much screwed. But that isn't necessarily fact, because they're still good at dodging. They're still able to get a touchdown. They're always still a threat, you know, until the end of the game. So you know, 2-1 up. You should always be more careful. This time, you know, the pass failed, but it's just as likely that it wouldn't. It was a 6+, so you know. Oh, I didn't mean to switch view there. And you know, that's 3-1. That's probably a win. However, you know, the Wood Elves can always surprise you. An elf team can always surprise you, and so can Skaven as well. You know, getting that one-turn touchdown is always possible, and it's always a threat. So you have to be careful for that kind of thing. So yeah, you know, you can see my this is kind of a basic Skaven setup for me, whereby we've got people in the middle. And, you know, if we're playing against an agility team, they come in these gaps, and then I deal with it when I know where they're going. You know, I'm mobile enough to be able to have this. As a dwarf team, I'd advise 2 guys at the back, to, you know, two guys back here, a couple of guys kind of spread out along this middle line, and then the rest of them kind of in an aggressive point here. You know, don't allow yourself to get pulled in to one specific area, because what a Wood Elf team, what a Skaven team, what any Elf team can do is they can bring the ball up here. If you're in kind of a defensive formation with not much, let's say you have one guy back and everyone else is here, if they bring the ball here, they bring the majority of their players here, kind of to this area, you move all your guys in here. And this is the same with Chaos and Orcs and all these other guys as well. If they bring all their guys here, and say he's got like one guy on the corner here and that kind of thing, all you need to do as a Wood Elf team, weather the storm for a turn, maybe 2, take some hits, and then switch sides. You know, with going for it, maybe someone with short feet, all they need to do is just run, and then you cannot catch them. Make a pass, make a few running plays, and you are on the wrong side of the pitch, and they're about to score a touchdown, and there's nothing you can do about it. So just keeping people deep, keeping your defense in a very spread out kind of way, means that yes, they can do a bit more bashing at you. Look at that crap. And there you go. Like, did you expect them to get a touchdown? As I remember when I played this game, I did not expect to get a touchdown against me right at the end. But that's the kind of things elves can do. And it was a good game. It was a good game. He got, you know, 2 touchdowns, 4 passes. You know, that's Wood Elves. And High Elves and Dark Elves as well, to a certain extent. You know, he was down to 5 or 6 people at the very end there. Still managed to get a touchdown. You know, so if say for example we were drawn at that point, and I was like, okay, I've got the draw, that's cool. You know, that would have been a win. That, you know, if I was 2-1 up or 3-2 up, and it was right at the end, he would have got a draw. You know, like, it's one of those things, I guess, that you just have to accept. So I do have a Wood Elf team here, so we can just have a quick little. There we go. And you can see on my Wood Elf team, I've got 2 people injured, and that kind of thing. But if you have a look, like, the War Dancers start with block, dodge, and leap. So leap lets you jump with an agility roll. So that's, you know, you can just like jump over defense and stuff like that. They're a ridiculous running team, and they've got the thrower as well if they take it, of course, which I didn't. And then they've got the catchers who have catch, dodge, sprint, and that block is an extra one. But yeah, the sprint again, 3 going for it. It's like and 8 movement allowance. They can move as far as a they can move as far as a gutter runner in total, like with the going for it, I think. So yeah, you know, it's they're dangerous. They are dangerous, and you've got to be very careful with them. But you know, at the end of the day, it's going to all come down to adjusting your play as the game progresses. However, playing against elves is a very harrowing experience when you get an elf team that has good luck and a good coach. So the advice I'll give you is never assume you've won. You know, if you're 2-1 up against an elf team, you defend as hard as you do if you were 0-0 and it was the beginning of the game. You know, always get bashing in when you can, regardless of the team you are. Against elf teams, try and get some injuries in. Even if you're a Skaven team or a human team, it's worth getting a mighty blow or 2. It's worth getting some guard. You know, play as more of a kind of play as more of a group. So, you know, like, if you see the chance, if you have the ball yourself and you see them converging on your ball player, make that a scrum. You know, make it a mosh pit. Just turn it into a scuffle, so that they are forced to fight you. Because most elf teams will not go in for much bash at all, and they can't sustain it even against, like, as you saw there, they can't sustain a pitched battle even against Skaven. Like, you know, it was a certain amount of luck and everything, but for the most part, they won't be trying to pitch a battle. So if they do decide to go for the ball, you bog them down, and that's one of the things you want to do, is you want to bog the elf team down. If you can clearly not hold down a defense against the wood elves or against the dark elves or against the high elves, you know, if they're passing over your heads, if they're dodging past you, then put pressure on the ball carrier. Let them get that touchdown. You know, take them out if you can and get the ball if you can. But if you can't, let them get that touchdown. Get the ball yourself. Cage up and move up slowly. Let them come at you. You know, and myself, I've made that mistake as an elf player before. You know, I go in to try, I think I see an opportunity to get the ball when I don't, and I go in too early, I get my players injured, and I lose the match because I have inferior numbers. You know, it's a classic mistake elf players will often make. You know, they think they see an opportunity to get the ball, lose a couple of players, suddenly they're at a disadvantage. As soon as they're at a disadvantage, you can take your time and be leisurely about getting those touchdowns. You know, it's hard to defend against elves, but if you're fairly cautious, if you put up kind of a decent deep defense, then they're going to be hesitant about moving their players in because you keep taking them out. You know, surround their catchers, get guys with kind of catch, to intercept, and to catch the ball for yourselves. You know, all these things can help. So I'd say at the end of the day, it's always rough playing against an elf team. With bashing, you know, you can do decently, but I'd say in general, with a equal team value, even late game, even against chaos, an elf team has the advantage over a bashy, like, strength-based team. You know, they may lose players, they may have a rough time of it, but the likelihood is they will win. And a lot of bashy players will go, like, you know, especially in the early games, they'll play only to bash. And as an elf player, as a Skaven player, you know, often I've won with 4 touchdowns, you know, maybe 1 on their side, 2 on their side, you know, 3 or 4 touchdowns. Just purely because they don't even try and play the ball. They just go for as many injuries as they can. And at the end of the game, you know, they're feeling like, oh, that was a game I won. And it's like, no, you didn't get any touchdowns, mate. You just got some injuries, and, you know, most of those injuries were not lasting on my players anyway. So yeah, there you go. And yeah, like, when the game first came out in beta, the highest teams were always elf. I think the dark elf were the starting team. Wait, no, it was orcs, Skaven, human, and dwarves, I think. And the Skaven were always the team that no one could deal with. And then when it was released, the dark elves were the team that was the dark elves and high elves, to a certain extent, were the teams that people couldn't deal with. But yeah, Skaven as well. You know, they're a rough team to defend against. And I'm going to do a specific how to play against Skaven. Because they're slightly different, and they're a pain in the arse. If you played against Skaven against a good coach, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, so there you go, guys. That is how to play against elves, slightly more specifically wood elves, but just in general how to play against elves. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I really hope I helped. I'll be doing more how to play against, and obviously we'll have more tip videos and coaching videos as the new races are released as well. You know, keep an eye out for those. I was gonna mention something, but I think I'll do a singular video on it, because it could be interesting. One thing I will say is, there was a thing that just came up about the World Cup. I will be participating in the World Cup. I'm not taking it too seriously, because I've got a lot of other videos to do. I've got streams and etc. You know, I'm doing Darkest Dungeon as well, which is taking up a fair amount of my time at the moment. So yeah, just keep in mind that while I will be doing Blood Bowl, I'm going to be doing a lot of other stuff as well. So yeah, as I said, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. More Blood Bowl videos coming. Up next will be a Surf and Turf, which should be fun. And I'll see you in the next one.